So, what is it to run a business, and is everybody meant to run a business? Well, the answer is no. In a lot of cases, people are not meant to run a business, and it requires a lot of discipline and requires a lot of you know fortitude, if you will, willing to stick it out, willing to hold yourself as responsible as if you had a boss. That's what it means to run a business, and for a lot of people who run comic shops, that's not necessarily why they get into it. Hey, everybody, this is Perch. Talking about businesses, one of the things that's been a stereotype, I think, of comic shops in general for a very long time is this idea that they're run by people who are lazy or who don't really care about business, that they don't have good customer service. They tend to kind of ignore customers, or they'll be bossy to them or tell them, I won't let you buy that. It always cracks me up when somebody, a comic shop owner is kind of bragging about taking a comic out of the hand of a customer. Like, I'm not going to let you buy this. And, it's kind of chuckle. People chuckle at it like, yeah, that's comic books for you. But not really. The people who do that are further, the customers generally think those people are dicks. They don't think, wow, I'm sure glad that guy saved me from a purchase. They think generally, hey, here's somebody getting in the way of me trying to spend money and get something I want. It's not seen as a good thing. But that, along with kind of the idea of the filthy comic shop, the people who don't take good care of the store, the shop owner who sits behind the counter, kind of slumped over on a chair, and sipping out of a big gulp and looking at something maybe on the computer and not really caring who comes in and out of the shops. I'll tell you, I when I go to a new town or a new city, I will, if there's a comic shop, I try and go visit it. I'll walk in, and I don't go in there. I've seen other people do this to me, like, I'm also a comic shop owner. Hello, fellow comic shop owner. Tell me about how the business works. I just go in, maybe look around, see kind of, are there some ideas. It's not scoping out the competition. These are towns that are not competition for me. They're completely somewhere else. But it's just kind of getting a sense, how do other people do this? How do they run their business? Are there things for me to learn? Are there things for me to avoid? Are there and also, is there a comic I want? I'll go in there and maybe it's like, oh, this is something I've always kind of wanted, and it's a good chance to do some shopping. And I do see it kind of as a, hey, here's a way for me to give some money into this quote unquote community that keeps money flowing. And it's never very much. Sometimes it is. I've bought some expensive back issues at other places, but um, generally but there are some common observations. I think generally comic shops fit into one of three camps. The first is a very what I would call buttoned up shop. It's clean. They've got the stuff organized. They've got store owner recommendation, little tags on books, and there's a feeling of hustle. Like they're in there and they're trying to really make sure they've got a good place. It's well lit, and generally speaking, you go in there and it is it's active. There are other customers in there shopping or talking or thinking, and it's an active business. The second camp is the one that is kind of given itself over to being game, comics. So there's comics, but then there's a big kind of unorganized collection of games somewhere in there, things to buy. But then there's card tables set up somewhere in the back of the shop, and people are doing tabletop gaming, and there's kind of gaming night, and there's perpetually at least one or two people sitting back there. Seem to always be there. They're not employees, but they're just there. I'm not sure why they're there, but just hanging out. And those shops tend to have a little bit less. So it's tend to be kind of a little scattered focus, is how it feels. Like they're not quite sure what they want to be when they grow up, so they're just kind of being a little bit of everything. And there's that kind of shop. And then the third type is this, what maybe the stereotype is. It's the owner sits back there. I would not, unfortunately, it's not uncommon. I'll go into a shop that I've never been in before, and the shop owner is, or whoever's working there, is sitting behind the counter and drinking that big gulp, reading something, or more often not, bent kind of over a laptop, and they are completely unplugged from the world. Sorry, they're a little beat. They are not paying attention to the customers, and I've gone in and I've not said a word. I go in, I look, I kind of spend 10, 15 minutes there. Guy never looks up from the table, and I leave. And the guy never looks up from the table. I always wondered in those cases, this is something you would never do, but I've wondered in those cases if I just like grabbed a big handful of books and then just not run out the door, just walked out the door carrying my big handful of books. Would he come after me? Would he be like, hey, you've got to come back here and pay for those? Or would I just like walk out? You kind of get the feeling of like, I could, bring a band in here. I could. There was a show, a reality show. I don't know if it came out in the US, but it was in Japan where they would get a bunch of bikini models and then they would just go into stores with the bikini models without like announcing anything. They just like go in like they're shopping, and one by one another bikini model will come into the shop until like there's like 20, 30 bikini models just in there shopping around in bikinis. And they're doing the hidden camera thing. The store was like, what's going on? I've wondered in those shops if like you had like a bunch of people in their underwear just kind of come into the shop. Would the person say anything? Or it just like, I don't know. I'm always disappointed in those shops, and I often think to myself, the shop is surviving because there are no other shops nearby, and there's a bunch of full box customers, and people are just kind of self-sustaining this business along by nature of just they keep coming in and they keep spending money, but there's no real, nothing is really going on to keep that money flowing. The guy's just sitting there. And unfortunately, I think those are the shops that a lot of people think about when they think about, things are, the lazy comic shop, the lazy comic shop owner. And I can tell you the comic shops that do hustle, that are trying to put effort into their business, hate those other shops by and large. They know they're out there. They hate the reputation it gives comic shops. They hate that whole feeling. And it drives them nuts. Drives me nuts, I will tell you. Just the comic shop owner that clearly could not give any F's, so to speak. That's just unfortunately a shame, but part of the business. But it goes to the question I started with, which is there's a lot of people who aren't built to run a business. I think if you're going to run a business, then you have to kind of mentally be prepared for a couple things. And one of those things is you have to be your own boss. And a lot of people say, yeah, that's what I like. I like being my own boss. I like doing it. Well, being your own boss doesn't mean, universal freedom. What it means is that, you are self-motivated, you're self-driven. If the floor is dirty, you are going to clean it up. You're going to, get out the mop, get out the dustpan, and you are going to make this shop clean. You don't have to be told to do it. You're doing it on your own. And that sounds like a kind of a ridiculous, weird comment. What is it? The Jordan Peterson, clean your room. It's the idea there is that you are self-motivated to actually, get something done. You don't have to be told. And that's the difference between being a child typically and being an adult. And one of the best things, this is a lot of people have a lot of feelings on Jordan Peterson and everything else, but I think he gives good advice, particularly in the standpoint of if you're a parent, or a grown man, a grown woman, you have to, clean your own room. You can't live in filth. And it's not about necessarily the room being cleaned. It's about the responsibility of doing something without being told. And a lot of people fail that test. And it's hard enough in your own life, but at a business, it takes it to another level. And even more so when you have employees, because now on some level, you're responsible for them. There certainly are maniacal, like crazy business owners who feel no responsibility for their employees. It's like, well, they should be grateful I'm giving them a check. And if I'm not giving them a check, then they should go get a check somewhere else. That's their problem. Again, those people don't stay in business long. They don't get to be managers for very long because nobody wants to work for them. You can, a lot of people read the stories of the Jim Shooter type, the Jack Welch type, the crazy boss who's, really hard, really firm, yells at people, runs a tight ship. And that sounds good, but the reality is, unless you're paying very well, unless you're in a highly desirable job, unless you've got a company that people really want to work for and will struggle to work for, that process, that management style is not going to work. The second somebody better comes along that has a better treatment of their employees, the second there's a better deal out, maybe paying more, everything else, that goes away. And so I watch people say, I'm going to, as a business owner, I'm going to adopt the Jack Welch attitude of like, you be grateful you have a job, and you should, I've got a vision, you should share that vision. If you don't share that vision, screw you. That works great when you're paying people and making it worth their while. If you don't offer anything in it for them, you're going to be a boss with a company of zero. Or you're going to be worse, you're going to be a boss with a company of people who are only there because they can't find another job, which largely means you've got a company full of dummies who aren't able to go get another job. That's not the kind of company you want. That's not a company built for success. It's a company built for failure. And so as a business owner, you have to have this balance. You have to not only push yourself, you have to find a way to push your employees. You have to strike the right balance between being a tough boss, but also or maybe a firm boss, but not a tough boss. You have to, put enough into the game that your employees will see value in working for you. Typically you can't have an employee pool of faith alone. You have to have people who are motivated to want to come in and work with you. And that's hard. It requires the ability to spin a lot of plates in the air at once. And so I would tell everyone, before you open up a comic shop or any business really, make sure you're mentally ready to do it. And there's no shame in not being ready. A lot of people are never ready. And a lot of people, it's just not their thing. It doesn't make you less. It doesn't make you somehow weaker, that you're not good at, it just means your benefits. I know I'm not going to be a pro NBA basketball player at any point ever in my life. Can I get on the court and shoot the ball and put it into the hoop? Yes, I can do that. Can I do that every single time I shoot? No. Am I about a foot and a half too short? Well, maybe not that much. At least a foot too short to be a player? Yes. Am I too old to be a pro basketball player? Yes. I mean, all these things are true. So there's no shame in just knowing your own strengths and limitations, and then veering into that. I think owning a business is a tremendous thing to do. It does give you power. It gives you freedom. It gives you responsibility. It gives you a lot of things that I think are really valuable things in life. And if you are a self-starter, if you can self-organize, if you can handle ambiguity, if you can keep a lot of different, disparate things going all at once, then opening a business is for you. You should absolutely do it. The comics shop business is really, the details are, of course, unique to comics, but the fundamentals are the same as any job where you're either a business owner or has responsibility. That you just have to take that with you. If you're opening up a comic shop because you thought it would always be fun to open a comic shop and you kind of had this vision of just being surrounded by comics and being able to sit and read comics all day, then, that can work too. Just make sure you have a lot of money, because you're not going to make a lot of money doing this. And the lack of capital, the lack of funding tends to drive people to do odd things or bad things. It tends to not work out well for people over time, in the sense that, if you go into it expecting it's going to be a ton of fun, but you're going into a business with a very thin revenue margin, and it's going to be very difficult for you to sustain yourself, then don't do it. I wouldn't do it. I think you have to be willing to have it out for a long slog, because in times it will be, especially times like now. Anyway, I don't know. Have you run your own business? What are the things that are unique from your perspective in running a business? And is it for you? Is it for everyone? I mean, it's not for everyone, but is it for you? And what am I missing? What other kind of things should people worry about before running a business? And do you clean your own room? All important questions. Leave a comment below. Hey, like, subscribe. If you have a friend who hasn't heard, I would love the recommendation. Shoot something over. Let's spread this thing virally. Don't. It seems like some joke could be made about flattening the curve of my subscribers, but that's a dad joke. That sounds like a dad joke. I don't want to do that one. I guess I just did. Anyway, thanks for listening. Follow me on Twitter at Perch, and hang in there. We're all getting through this together.